Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online character build video with me, Sherman, and today guys I bring you the Blood Hunter Ranger. Now before I get started, disclaimer, this is a roleplay casual play build. This is not meant for meta play. Now moving on. Blood Hunter Rangers are master hunters of the supernatural, not the undead. They hunt witches and warlocks and necromancers and other things in that general field that do a lot of summoning and ritualistic stuff, cultist, things like that. And they do live on the outskirts of civilization to avoid contact with people, so they can master the art of hunting these types of creatures. So they also hunt hags and wraiths, things like that, that interfere with society and the world around us. So, alright, so taking a look at this, we are a Blood Hunter Ranger. They are primarily damage dealers, just so you know. We are a Nord with this one. If you guys haven't seen the movie Witch Hunter with Vin Diesel, that's kind of what this is based on. It's that type of character, a witch hunter type character, and I changed it to Blood Hunter to fit what somebody had done in the Dungeons and Dragons universe to make it fit into that. So I just said, okay, I'm going to use the name, I'm just going to put it here. So we are on Nightblade for this. Now, to continue on, this, like I said, this character is primarily a damage dealer. Nord just kind of fit with the whole thematic theme of, like, hey, this is like Vin Diesel as a, you know, witch hunter character that's immortal and hunts these kind of supernatural beings, that kind of stuff. It just fit. Any race can play this, so just letting you know. Now, to go a little bit over how you can play this in different roles, if you want to play this as a tank, you would take the 64 points out of stamina and put enough into health to get you close to or at 30k. This will make you a good off tank, not a main tank, for trials. Now for dungeons, it doesn't matter. You can be a main tank and off tank. You can tank most dungeons in this game with nothing. You can even be a damage dealer and tank a dungeon. So, and that's on normal and veteran, and even hard mode. And that includes DLC dungeons. So, but to continue on, if you want to play this character more as a healer type character, you would take the 64 points out of stamina and put it all into magicka. Now, the reason for that is so you can maximize your magicka pool, so you could be a more effective support healer character. Now, talking a little bit about the tanking side, when you do have the close to 30 points into health, you're going to put the rest of the points into stamina. This is going to give you a good stamina pool with a good magicka pool and a good health pool. Right. Now, for this character, of course, to be damage dealer, we do want 64 points in the stamina. That's going to give us a 33k stamina pool as a Nord, 23k health, and a 20k magicka. Going over the recovery, we have 829 mag recovery, 367 health recovery, and a 1017 stamina recovery. And this works out really good in the long run. You guys will see why. Going over the weapons, we are using our weapon damage. We are sitting at 2359 with a 50% weapon critical. We do have a 1781 spell damage with a 30% spell critical, and we do have 18,000 spell resist with 17,000 physical resist. This is great for being solo capable, but also at the same time being very survivable. We do use the Thief Mundus Stone to boost our crit chance. If you want to play this as a tank, you might want to use the Lady Mundus Stone, and playing this as a healer, it's better to go with the Acheronk Mundus Stone for the higher magic recovery. We do primarily use tri-stat food all the time because we want good magicka, stamina, and health in our pools. And the reason for that is so this way we can take advantage of having a higher magicka pool for certain abilities, that we can take advantage of. The higher health pool is to make this so we're more survivable, and the higher stamina pool, of course, is to make our max stamina pool that much better for damage. Alright, moving on now to our equipment and potions and stuff like that. Excuse the Tri-Crown refreshing drinks. That was the special reward of the day. So, tripods, this is what we're going to primarily use for tanking. Spell power pots is what we're going to primarily use for playing healer, and stamina power pots is what we're going to use for playing damage dealer. Now, this character can use a two-handed greatsword or dual wield as their primary weapons of choice on the front bar, and it works out really well. Alright, now we're going to go over our sets. Starting with our monster set, and this is optional. The monster set is a optional set. You can switch it out with other ones. The reason I chose this one is because, remember, these guys are master hunters of the supernatural. So they hunt witches, warlocks, cultists, things like that. So the first set that we're using is called Spawn of Mafala. Now, the one piece adds max stamina. The two piece, when you deal damage with a fully charged heavy attack, you create a web for 10 seconds that deals X amount of poison damage to all enemies within 4 meters and reduces their movement speed by 50%. This can occur once every 10 seconds. So you can reduce their movement speed in the whole 4-meter radius by 50% for the whole duration of 10 seconds. On top of that, you're going to be dealing damage to them as well. You do have to throw a heavy attack to get this to go off, so I start my rotations usually with a heavy attack. It works out really well. Moving on to the next set, we are using the Briarheart set, and as you can see, this gives you on the 2-piece weapon critical, 3-piece max stam, 4-piece weapon critical, and on the 5-piece, when you deal critical damage, you have a 10% chance to increase your weapon damage by 449 for 10 seconds. This effect is active, while this effect is active, your critical strikes heal you for X amount, and the effect can occur once every 15 seconds. Now, it lasts for 10, so you have a 5-second time where it's not up, but it's pretty much all the time. The next set is something unusual, and a lot of people are going to question this, but I don't mind. It's going to make some sense when you guys see it. So the next set we are using is called the Withered Hand. Now, this is considered a set for necromancers, but it works really good for Nightblades as well. And the reason why the 2-piece mag recovery, 3-piece max magicka, 4-piece max health, and then the 5-piece. When you are within 28 meters of an enemy you are in combat with, and the enemy dies, you heal for X amount and you gain X amount of magicka. This effect can occur once every 3 seconds. Pretty much it's just a way to sustain your resources and to give you a little bit back. And this is where that whole idea of like I'm immortal thing comes from, is this set heals you, this set heals you, and each set has its property to give you more effective damage capabilities. So, now, moving on to the monster set, or the traits and enchants on all the different sets. We're going to go over the head and the shoulders first. This is going to be heavy reinforced. The reason for that is because you want at least one heavy piece that's reinforced on your body. This way you can maximize your resistance value. Now, if you're using a crafted set like Hunting's Rage or Night Mothers or something else to fit that, on the body, you would change this to medium. Now, the shoulders, or the enchant on this is a tri-stat. This is so we can hybridize better into the 3 different roles, tank, healer, and damage dealer, but it also allows us to build our pools up for both magicka and stamina. Moving on to the shoulders. We are using a Divine's max stamina on the shoulders. The Divine's is to boost Mundus Stone effect, and the max stamina is to boost our stamina pool. Now moving on to the body, which are all going to be medium pieces. This is a light piece, this is your heavy. This is so we can take advantage of the passives from the light armor and medium armor passives, or heavy armor passives in our character build. So that's why we use the light and heavy, and we can also take advantage of the Undaunted passive that boosts our maxed resources by 6%. Moving on to the body, which is, like I said, all medium. Starting with the chest, we are wearing well fitted to reduce our dodge roll cost and our sprint cost. And this also has a tri-stat in it to hybridize. The well fitted, you don't have to use well fitted here. You can use infused or you can use invigorating, your choice. I went with well fitted because I like the reduced dodge roll thing. With medium armor, you get a higher reduced dodge roll cost of 20%. This adds on to that by another 10%, so you go to 30%. And then with your CP, you go to 50, or is it 46? 46%, almost 50% reduced cost. And then moving on to the gloves, belt, and boots, we are using medium, divines, stamina, enchants. And the reason for that is, again, we want to make our Mundus Stone work to our advantage as great as possible. So we want that divine set there, or divine's trait there. That way we can maximize our Mundus Stone use. And then with the max stamina, it boosts our stamina pool to a higher value. And that's why on these 3 pieces, we use the Divine's max stamina, and also on the shoulders, Divine max stamina. On all the small pieces, you want that Divine's max stamina so you can take advantage of that higher stamina pool, again, like I said, and the higher Mundus Stone effect. Moving on to the legs, we are using well-fitted here as well with a tri-stat enchant. That way we can hybridize, but also play with the higher pools of magic and stamina. And then the dodge roll and the sprint cost reduction really helps out in the long run. Remember, we're hunters. Moving on to the jewelry. Starting with the 2 rings. Sorry guys, had a quick trimmer there. And that was a small one. We have 2 rings of Trirune of the Withered Hand. And the reason we use Trirune is, again, so we can hybridize, but we can also take advantage of the higher magicka, higher stamina pools on the same character, so we can use those pools for more effective use. Alright, so this works out really good for us. And then we do have 2 weapon damage, or a weapon damage and a spell damage enchant. Now, people are going to question the weapon spell damage enchant combo. Because of the way Briarheart works, it gives you a really high pool of weapon damage. Along with this 1 weapon damage, you can get about 4k weapon damage, which is more than enough to play any content. The spell damage is our weak point, and we want that higher spell damage so we can take advantage of some of our magic abilities that we use. The next thing we have is a Bloodthirsty Stam Recovery Necklace. Now, the reason for the Bloodthirsty is this increases the damage against enemies under 25% health by 10%. The Stam Recovery is to maximize our Stam Recovery. We're going to get a lot of mag recovery and health recovery from the Withered Hand set. So, moving on to the weapons. We are using a sword and dagger on the front bar. The sword is infused with the disease damage enchant. I know I used sharpen on some of my builds, but I wanted to see how infused worked with some too. So infused and sharpen both work out really well. Infused will give you higher enchantment effect and reduce cooldown. So this way we can apply that disease damage enchant more often. And then in the offhand, we are using a Nirnhone dagger with a absorbed stamina recovery. Now this will deal physical damage and it'll restore stamina. And the Nirnhone will increase your weapon damage of your offhand by 15%. Making that weapon damage 1535 over 1335. So it does increase by roughly 200 extra weapon damage in the offhand, which also you get 6% of your offhand weapon damage added to your character's damage for the dual wield passive. But it works out really well in the long run. Now moving on to the back bar, we have a bow of the Withered Hand infused with a weapon and spell damage enchant. Now the reason for the weapon and spell damage enchant is so this way we can maximize both our magic pool and our weapon damage pool for higher value, so we can take advantage of that magic damage capability and that physical damage capability no matter what role we're in. Alright, now that I've shown you guys that stuff, we are going to go over skills, starting with our class skills. I do take the ultimate active abilities and passives for each skill line. Now, I'm going to go over something here really quick so you guys understand. Incapacitating Strikes, Killer's Blade, Ambush, and Relentless Focus are stamina-based morphs, along with the Shadow skill, Surprise Attack. These are all stamina-based morphs, and these are the skills that we're going to be using primarily from our class line as physical damage skills. Now, we do use some magic-based skills, so we do want to take advantage of every ultimate active ability on our character, so we can use all these different skills in different ways to take advantage of that with our character's playstyle. Moving on to weapons, you can use it two-handed, like I said, so I did unlock the ultimate active abilities and passives here. Same thing with dual wield, because dual wield is our primary weapon of use, so we are going to take the ultimate active abilities and passives, and same thing with the bow. This way we can take advantage of that. Different playstyles for different situations in different areas of the game. Alright, armor skills and passives. We do use the top 3 of the light armor passives because Grace we can actually take advantage of, Evocation we take advantage of, and Spell Warding we take advantage of. We are a medium armor build, so you do want to fill in all your passives here so you can take advantage of every single one of these for your character. Agility is the prime one that you're going for, and you have to wear 5 pieces of medium armor to increase your weapon damage by 15%. But you are going to be taking advantage of all these other ones, like higher weapon crit, higher stam recovery, higher reduced stam cost to abilities, and then the improved sneak, and then athletics. You will be using those. And then heavy armor, you just need the top 3, because the bottom 2 require you to wear 5 pieces of heavy armor. But this gives you Resolve, Constitution, and Juggernaut. Each of these play into your character really well. Juggernaut increases your max health by 2%. Resolve gives you higher resistance value. Even though it's a very small increase, it does pay off in the long run. And then Constitution also plays into your character by giving you resources back every 4 seconds when you take damage. World skills. You can be a vampire and werewolf with this, but it does kind of not fit the theme because you're a supernatural hunter. Soul magic, ultimate, active abilities, and passives. The top 3, the ultimate, the active ability, and this first passive are optional. The next 2 I would say are not, but it's up to you. You can play your character how you want. Soul summons of the Soul Lock are very helpful though. Moving on to guild skills, we do take the Fighter's Guild, ultimate, active abilities, and passives because we use a lot of these abilities in our ability to hunt monsters and to take advantage of that higher capability with increasing our weapon damage for each fighter's skilled ability slotted. And then on top of that, Skilled Hunter, our weapon damage or our weapon abilities from the Fighter's Guild, Fighter's Guild abilities will do 20% more damage to undead, Daedra, and werewolves. And then Banish the Wicked allows us to generate ultimate when we kill an undead, Daedra, or werewolf. Mage's Guild, we also take all the active ultimates and passive abilities here as well, so we can use some of these abilities in different situations. The same thing goes with Psijic Order. We take the ultimate, active abilities, and passives. And then Undaunted, we do the same thing. We take the active abilities and the passives here so we can take advantage of those higher pools for different things. Or those higher amount of skills to our character so we can take advantage of them in different roles, different activities. Every one of these Undaunted skills is a synergy, so that's really good. And then on top of that, we have the 2 passives here, which play into our character very well. The Undaunted command allows us to get resources back when we activate a synergy, which all of these are. And then the Undaunted Metal increases our max health, stamina, and magic pool by 2% for each type of armor we are wearing. We are wearing 1 heavy, 1 light, 5 medium, so we do get 6% increase to all of our stats. Alliance War, assault skills. I take the ones that best reflect my ability to play PvE. So I take the ultimate and these 2 active abilities. The rest of these I would say better affect you in PvP and would work better there, including the passives. Support line, same thing. Ultimate, 2 active abilities, and the 1 passive play best for PvE. The rest of them really work better in PvP. Moving on to racials. We are a Nord with this, so we get Resist Frost. This increases our max health by 1,000 and gives us cold resistance and immunity to chilled status effects. We also get Stalwart, which increases our max stamina by 1500. And whenever we take damage, we generate 5 ultimate. This effect can happen every 10 seconds. And then we get Rugged. This increases our spell and physical resist by 3960. Alright, moving on to crafting passives. So, Alchemy has a really good passive called Medicinal Use, and when using potions, resulting effects last 30% longer. And Provisioning gives you Gourmand and Connoisseur. When you use the food or drink item, they last 20 minutes longer. Now, you can use drinks with this, like Dubious Cameron Throne, Witch Mother's Potent Brew, for when you're playing more damage dealer, more stamina-based damage dealer versus more mix. And you can use Witch Mother's Potent Brew for playing a healer or a damage dealer on the Magicka side. You can do both, but you're more effective as a stamina damage dealer. Alright, going over the skills on the front bar. Starting with the first one, we do have Blood Craze. Now, I've told you guys this before. If I use Blood Craze, I use Rapid Strikes from the dual wield line as usually my spammable, but since we're on a Nightblade, we are going to use a different spammable ability from the Nightblade skill line. But this does X amount of damage up front, it does X amount of damage over 10 seconds, and it also heals you every 2 seconds for the duration. Moving on to the next ability, we are using Silver Shards. Now this is you basically pull out the Dawnguard's Vampire Hunter crossbow, you shoot, dealing X amount of damage and reducing movement speed of the enemy that you hit by 40% for 4 seconds. It fires up to 5 additional bolts at other enemies near the initial target for 47% less damage. Remember that 47% less damage is boosted by 20% if they are Daedra, Undead, or Werewolves. Moving on. Surprise attack. This allows you to deal damage to an enemy. If you are flanking the enemy, you shred through a small portion of their armor, reducing their physical resistance by 5% for 10 seconds. Attacking with surprise attack while sneaking or invisible stuns the enemy for 3 seconds and sets them off balance for 5. The reason we use this as our spammable is it just does a lot of damage to a single target. And it looks really cool. Next ability we have is called Swallow Soul. Now this is a great ability. This does X amount of magic damage and heals you for 39% of the damage inflicted once every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. Moving on, the next ability we have is an Execute, and it's called Killer's Blade. This deals X amount of disease damage to the target, but deals 300% more of that damage when the enemy is below 25% health. It also heals you if the enemy for X amount of health if the enemy dies within 2 seconds and of being struck. The portion of this ability scales off your max health. That's really nice because we can actually take advantage of that. And then on to the ultimate, we do use Flawless Dawnbreaker. Now this does X amount of damage to enemies up front, X amount of damage to enemies over 6 seconds, but while slotted, your weapon damage is increased by 5%. That's why our weapon damage on the front bar is going to be higher than the back bar, is because we run Flawless Dawnbreaker. We also have the Fighter's Guild ability, Silver Shards. So both of these together give us 6% increase in weapon damage along with this 5%. So we get 11% increase in weapon damage. Moving on to the back bar, where our bow is. Our first ability here is Rearming Trap, and this is again to allow us to be more like a Ranger Hunter type. We throw this ability out, and it sets a trap. That trap takes 1.5 seconds to arm. When it activates, it deals X amount of damage up front, and then it deals X amount of damage over 5 seconds, immobilizing the enemy for 6 seconds, and then also grants you Minor Force for the duration of 6 seconds, which increases your critical damage done by 10%. After being triggered, the trap resets itself and can be triggered one more time. So you actually get 12 seconds of Minor Force. Okay, next ability we have is called Venom Arrow. This does X amount of poison damage up front, X amount of poison damage over 10 seconds, but it also has a chance to, if an enemy is casting an ability, it will interrupt them, set them off balance, and stun them for 3 seconds. Our next ability is called Endless Hail. Now this one, you launch a multitude of arrows into the sky to rain down, dealing X amount of physical damage to enemies every 0.5 seconds for 10 seconds. And then this just is really good for damage over time. The next ability we have is a floater ability, but it's one I like to use. It's called Reaper's Mark. And this one helps you and your allies, because you can mark a target with Major Breach and Major Fracture, reducing physical and spell resistance by 5,280 for 20 seconds. And then when the marked target dies, you heal for X amount and gain Major Berserk, increasing your damage done by 25% for 5 seconds. The portion of this ability scales off your max health, and you can only have one Reaper's Mark active at a time. So this really helps for when you're hunting your prey. Next ability you have is called Leeching Strikes. This one, another really great ability. This one deals what it does is it imbues you with leeching powers, and you can soul steal some of the power from your enemies. That every time you deal a light or heavy attack, you heal for X amount, and you restore. You heal for 1640 health, and you restore 106 stamina for 20 seconds. Fully charged heavy attacks restore twice the value, and then you restore up to X amount of additional stamina when the effect ends. That's based on the length of time Leeching Strikes was active. Now, I reapply this every time in my rotation, so this is constantly giving me resources back regardless. Moving on to the next ability, and this is another one that we can use, and that is Incapacitating Strikes. This deals X amount of disease damage to the enemy and causes them to take 20% more damage from attacks for 6 seconds. If you cast this at 120 ultimate or more, you'll silence the enemy for 3 seconds, and then while slotted, you gain Reeve, which restores 100 magic and stamina when you deal damage with a light or heavy attack to an enemy with a negative effect on them. Now remember, Reaper's Mark is considered a negative effect, so this will give you that 100 magic and stamina back when you're doing light attack weaves on the back bar. So, really nice. These are also considered a negative effect when you interrupt, set off balance, and stun. And then this one, if you immobilize them, is considered negative effect. So everything back here, these first two and this ability are considered negative effects, so they can help you get resources back. Alright, now that I've shown you the skills, guys, we are going to go over the champion level stuff. Starting with the red tree or the warrior tree, we're going to start here. 56 in Ironclad. This reduces damage taken from direct damage attacks by 20%. We also have 20 in the medium armor focus. This increases your physical resistance by X amount by 1900 for wearing 5 pieces of medium armor. Spell shield, we have 18 points. This increases your spell resistance by 1729. And then moving on to the middle tree over here, we have 31 into thick skin, reducing your damage taken from damage over time effects by 13%. 43 into hardy, reducing your damage taken from physical poison disease damage by 10%. And 43 into elemental defender. This reduces your damage taken from flame, frost, shock, and magic damage by 10%. Moving on over here, we have 40 into bastion. This increases the effectiveness of your damage shields by 16%. And then 19 into quick recovery increases your healing received by 5%. Moving on over here, we have 40 in the Warlord. This reduces the cost to break free by 16%. We have 16 in the Sprinter, reducing the sprint cost by 10%. And then 16 in the Bashing Focus, reducing the bash cost by 10%. Moving on to the middle green tree or the Rogue tree, we have 75 in a Mooncalf. This increases your stamina recovery by 14%, and it's the Thief tree, not the Rogue tree. So this gives you higher stamina recovery. And then we have 43 in Arcanus. This increases your mag recovery by 10%. Moving on over here, we have 40 in the Tumbling, reducing your dodge roll cost by 16%, and 40 in the Shadow Ward, reducing your block cost by 16%. Moving on to the blue tree, otherwise known as the Mage tree, we have 43 in the Bless. This increases your healing done by 10%. This is set up to be a hybrid because we use both Magicka and Stamina mostly. So we have 23 in Elfborn. This increases critical damage and critical healing with magic abilities by 10%. We have 43 in Elemental Expert, increasing Flame, Frost, Shock, and magic damage by 10%. And then moving on over here, we have 35 in a Physical Weapon Expert. This increases light and heavy attack damage with two-handed, one-handed and shield, dual wield, and bow weapons, as well as werewolf form by 20%. and 40 into Mastered Arms. This increases your direct damage done with direct damage attacks done by 16%. This does allow you to unlock Retaliation, Reposit, and Butcher. So all three of these passives are really good. And because somebody asked why we put so much into here, we want to unlock Spell Precision. This increases our spell critical by 9%, but we also want Foresight. And this is when you drink a potion, the cost of your next magic ability used within 7 seconds is reduced by 80%. Moving on to the final blue tree, we have 43 into Mighty. This increases physical poison, disease damage done by 10%. We have 23 into Precise Strikes, increasing your critical damage and critical healing with stamina abilities by 10%. And then 20 into Thaumaturge. This increases your damage done with damage over time effects by 9%. Alright, so now that you guys have seen all that, I'm pretty sure you guys want to see what this thing looks like in action. So I'm going to show you 2 quick parses. I'm going to do one on a smaller thing called a Precursor. This is going to represent what your damage would look like in a dungeon scenario. And then on the bigger one over here, and this will show you what your damage would look like in a really super organized group. That means playing with one of every class type in your group, besides the Necromancer. Alright, so first things first, we are going to use our potion to buff up. We are going to use our buffs here too. We're going to debuff this guy so we can start getting those resources back right away. This is going to help us sustain better. And I used the wrong ability. So we did roughly about 24k DPS, as you guys can see here. Our weapon damage was coming out at 4,050, 68% weapon critical, 80% critical damage. We did have 5,280 physical penetration. And then on the Magicka side, we have 2,233 spell damage with 32% spell critical, 80% critical damage, and 5,280 spell penetration. Some of our abilities might not look like they did a lot of damage to some people, like Swallow Soul that did 5k, but you gotta understand, 5k, it doesn't matter. As long as you're dealing damage, that's what matters. And that ability also heals you. So that's another reason why we keep this up. So everything we do heals us, does damage, and everything. It's a very nice combination. So now what we're going to do is we are going to go over to this one, and this is going to show you what your damage will look like in an organized group setting. That doesn't mean meta setting. This means organized group setting. So, first thing we're going to do is drink our potion, go through the same thing here. Oops, wrong ability. Use the ultimate this time. And usually I can get to about 35k DPS with this. Just today I'm not feeling too good with the trimmers, as you guys can see. I'm actually trying to restrain them, but they're not working out. So, but yeah. And also when you face against that one, you will get what's considered the Warhorn buff on you, and the max health buff from the Warden. So your stats will actually change to 22,000 max magic, and 25k max health, and 35k max stamina. And this is just to represent what it looks like when you're in an organized group with Warhorn and other things applied to you, and every buff possible in the game. So as you can see, we get Major Courage, Minor Berserk, Aggressive Warhorn, Minor Toughness, Major Force, Worm's Remnant, Minor Prophecy, Heresine's Veneer, Minor Brutality, Minor Savagery, and Minor Sorcery. Now, I'm going to tell you guys this. The Minor Sorcery comes from the Templar, Minor Savagery comes from the Nightblade, Minor Brutality comes from the Dragon Knight, and Minor Prophecy comes from the Sorcerer. So in order to have those buffs, you have to have one of each of those in your group. On top of that, if you want Minor Toughness, you have to have a Warden in your group. So that means you need to have 5 of the 6 classes in your group. On top of that, to get Major Force, you have to have 100% uptime of Warhorn. And in order to get 100% uptime of Warhorn, 4 of your active people in your group need to run it. and that means they have to activate it every 30 seconds in order for it to stay active 100%. It's not easy. And then on top of that, to get minor berserk and minor courage all the time, or major courage all the time, somebody has to be running Olorum, who can apply that to you every chance they get. And then minor berserk is something that a healer can apply to you through one of the healer resto staff abilities, and it's not easy to keep all this stuff 100% applied. Alright, moving on to the testing in a dungeon, and I'm not going to change anything with this because this thing's just got insane outgoing healing, and I'm not even going to put a shield on because this thing's got really good survivability as is. So the reason we're going to go into the depths of Malatar is to show you how well this build can play in solo play, but also how effective it can be in a dungeon scenario as well. And I don't think I need to use the shield. When I tested this before, I don't remember using the shield, so. And yes, I have played through most of this dungeon on every one of the characters, and some of them all the way through with solo play, just to make sure I could do it. And I set that way off. Alright. So as you guys can see, this thing actually works out pretty well. It's actually quite powerful for what it does. Alright, now we're going to move on into the boss's chamber, and hopefully we won't die. I might. You know, you never know. Now remember, this is our speciality, is things like this. We hunt this. Unfortunately, it is not considered an undead, which kind of sucks, but... Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and let this thing kill me, because if I don't, I will continue fighting it until it's dead. Alright, so, going back to the beginning here, that is the Blood Hunter Ranger, guys. I hope you guys like it, and like I said, I hope that it fit the theme of what I was trying to do. Like I said, I was trying to mimic the whole witch hunter type feel with it, and I just thought that this really worked for that kind of theme. So, you know, an immortal that uses his powers to face his enemies, so... Excuse me. But that is pretty much it for the Blood Hunter Ranger, guys. I hope you guys like it. If you did, you guys know what's coming next. Go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy might see you in game. Bye.